Just sit back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from Deep Space Nine aboard a tiny ship. The mate was a mighty sailing man. The skipper, brave and sure. 5 passengers set sail that day. Actually, it was 3. For a 3-hour tour to the Gamma Quadrant. Yes! It is Season 4, Episode 9, The Sword of Kahless. I am your host, Jeff Mater. Here with another edition of Deep Space Nine at Nine-ish. Joined, as always, by my lovely set of guests. We have my brother right here. Right there.
The skipper to Millard and his wife.
The ship that ground on the shore of this uncharted Gamma Quadrant planet with Worf and Core, the skipper too, Jadzia too, the millionaire and his wife, the movie star, the professor. You get the point.
We get it, you know. And you're responding to a comment we had here from Sam, who's a big fan of our Big Brother and Survivor podcast, saying he's calling for the Gilligan's Islands. If we did it, it would be over on Super Mater Brothers. It wouldn't be on Live Long, a podcast. But we appreciate the suggestion, and our dad would love it. So we float that idea by him.
No phone, no lights, no motor car, not a single luxury, not even Jaemeel Robinson. I don't even know how to say that. Crusoe. I don't know. I don't understand. Caruso. I don't understand these lyrics. I didn't watch this show, but I did watch this show. And this is Season 4, Episode 9 of Deep Space Nine, The Sword of Kahless. Kahless, actually.
Kahless. I am Takuma. We do not desire to know you, but you will know us standing as one. That's my Takuma impression.
To think that Kahless once held this battle of himself. And I think Dave might have the Sword of Kahless right above him.
It's not. Well, it's got a few less spikes, but yes, that is a Batleth up there. I do have just to bring up the screen.
David forged the first empire. I mean,
but that's what the Sword of Kahless looks like right there. Right before they beam it into space.
Okay, so spoilers. But basically, this is like a long lost uncle taking you on like a road trip, telling you all about, how you're not really part of the family, but you are, and you're trying to show the way. That's kind of what this episode reminds me of. And Worf has kind of got to balance his Klingonness and his Starfleet duty, which is always kind of the case with Worf. And in this episode, it's amplified to 11. Sam, this is Deep Space Nine at Nine-ish. This is where we cover all the episodes of Deep Space Nine, and we are on Season 4, Episode 9. Yes, that's right. And we are covering the Core is from the original series, which I think is actually quite interesting if you were a fan of the 60s. Dave and Kevin and Ashley have been covering the original series over on Monday nights with guys.
Jody Simpson and Adam and Dad.
And Jody Simpson, Adam, and Dad. Give us a little background of Core, because this episode brings us a lot of Core. So we'll start with you, Dave.
Yeah, Core. He's one of the few original series Klingons that they brought back for Deep Space Nine. They, in his episode, that's the where there's the Treaty of Organia, and Kirk and Spock are sort of like they're there right when war is about to break out between the Klingon Empire on Organia and the Federation, and they kind of pretend to be Organians for a while. And Core is kind of like this military governor of Organia until they figure out the Organians are actually this super advanced species that forces the Federation to sign a peace treaty. So he's very much a villain in his original appearance, but they do say in that episode that the Organians tell Kirk and Core that one day the Federation and the Klingon Empire will become friends, which is what they do realize in Next Gen and Deep Space Nine. And then in Season 3, Core was part of that whole Blood Oath episode where, they brought back Koloth and Kang, who Core can't shut up about in this episode. He references them constantly. And it was interesting. I think an interesting choice to, bring him back again here, because he doesn't get killed in that episode. He's the survivor of that episode. and to pair him up with Worf here was an interesting. Although, I know you didn't ask me this, but I'm just gonna tell you. That
Are these details from Dave?
Discovered by Dave.
Well, I think it's just interesting that this is like after Way of the Warrior, which is Worf's like intro into Deep Space Nine. This is really the first focused episode on him. Since then, we're about nine episodes into the season. So I don't know if it's my favorite Worf focused episode on Deep Space. Maybe it's one of my least favorites in some ways. But I think that's who Kor is. He was like this antagonist, sort of anti-hero character that they established all this other backstory with the Dax character that Curzon Dax knew Kor 80 years ago, and they fought side by side, and they're good friends, right? So that's Kor, and his failing is he gets drunk and he falls down a lot.
Okay. All right, our Bajoran workers. We'll head it on over to you, Kevin and Ashley Millard. What do you guys make of this Kor coming back, as Dave alluded to? Do you enjoy the relationship that he has with Worf? He's kind of a jerk to Worf almost throughout the episode.
I don't think so. I do like Kor. I always like when he's on any of these episodes. I do like the way they meet, where Worf is not often shy. So I like that it shows the respect for Kor and the admiration, which sets up the whole episode. I like it. I like these episodes.
Okay, all right, Ashley. Okay? What I meant by kind of what Kor looks at Worf, he calls him a pariah at one point, I believe. He calls it, he says he should have killed a young boy, out of honor, and like, dude, he is kind of hard on Worf, and it's Worf's timidness that Kevin's alluding to that I think is why that's the real reason to me why he is hard on Worf. Do you kind of see it that way?
I think anytime a Klingon comes in, they're kind of a dick to Worf. Like, that's just always seems to be every time a Klingon comes in. They're not very nice to Worf, and we get used to Worf and Worf's Klingonness, but then when other Klingons come in, you kind of see that Worf has like a stick up his butt for a Klingon. Like, he is a little over the top, and I think Kor likes him, but his big problem is he's just like, you're too serious. Like, you need to relax. And when he was joking around with him in Quarks, that was just Kor. That was just Kor being Kor.
Okay. Jaemeel, when we look at Kor and like this opening scene here, where he kind of plays to Worf's motivations, where he says, let's go on this adventure. It will annoy Gowron. And right. And he also says, Worf, don't go looking for the Sword of Kahless, or it will be your biggest regret. That's at least how I look at how my question for you, Jaemeel, is do you what are the motivations both from Worf's point of view here to find the Sword of Kahless and from Kor's point of view to find the Sword of Kahless? Are they linked or are they different?
Well, they're in alignment. Worf being this outsider, being brought into this what seems to be a very grand and important journey, being part of the stories that he loves to hear, that he's drawn to. He's like, yes, I will join your journey. I will be on this quest for glory, for the Empire. It's for duty. There's multiple motivations co-mixing to motivate Worf to be a part of this. And Kor loves a captive audience, and Worf is like buying all of his bullshit sink. Was it fish, line, and sinker? So
Hook line.
hook. Thank you. I think
I think
majority of people
I
got
don't
it.
know if fish line is wrong, but it doesn't sound right.
Thank you, Dave.
You're
Just
welcome.
cut my
No
legs
problem.
from underneath me.
Anytime,
and
anytime.
my ramblings.
Okay,
Jeff, I'm
but
done.
what
I'm done, Jeff.
what I was trying to say was, it seems like from this opening scene, especially, that Core wants to do this because it's one last chance at glory and to be remembered, and he is smart enough to play to Worf's motivations of almost like revenge or showmanship, of to kind of shove it in Gowan's face, like, look, you've disrespected me, you've taken my honor, my house, and you've, this, he's trying to say to him, like, we both have the same motivations, but I don't think they do. I think, like, Core is coming at it from a point of view of, I'm an old man and I haven't done anything with my life, and I just need to find that one thing, and this is the one thing, which seems like kind of a lost cause, and kind of a crazy idea. But Worf, he's playing to Worf because he needs Worf to be able to go do this. Dave, do you kind of see what I'm saying?
No. He needs Dax for this mission. I think Worf was like kind of a bonus in terms of like getting an extra, like, somebody to come along. I think he just kind of rolls with it. He's like, sure, Worf, you don't like Gowron? Yeah. I don't like Gowron either, so you're cool with me.
Core doesn't ask him to come along. He asks Core if he can join him.
Right.
But why give him the whole story? Why give him the whole spiel about Gowron? Why do that?
Because he likes telling stories. That's it. He just loves. He's this big personality.
I think he's also trying to put Worf at ease here, because he knows that Worf's like, "Are you going to hate me because I've been outcasted? I've been like, and he's like, nope, I don't. Just because the High Council says you suck doesn't mean I think so, right? Automatically, at least, and he goes, for a Dahar master who wants to get a statue in the Hall of Heroes or whatever, he doesn't seem to be very friendly with the current administration.
Okay,
and do you get the impression that Cord also was not for the invasion of Cardassia? Do you get that impression in this episode?
I'm not sure if I do.
I don't think he cares.
He says that the Emperor opposed it, and but it didn't. No one cared. And the Emperor is just the clone of Kahless, who we met in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I think Core is at this moment anyway just more obsessed with Core. Like, he's obsessed with his own glory, the stories that'll be told about him. That's more what he's about. He's done with the politics of being a Klingon.
Jeremy saying Deep Space Nine is one of his favorites after TOS. Well, lucky for you, Jeremy, we covered both here on Live Long and Podcast.
So you guys just come for the perspective that Core is a guy that likes to have a good time, and he was kind of sees Worf as a guy with something up his butt, and he was trying to get him to lighten up, and he only ever needed Dax to go on this mission, and he had no interest in trying to get Worf to come with him. That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
I disagree with you guys. I think he wanted Worf to come on this mission right from the beginning, and it wasn't portrayed that way to the audience. But I think why say all these things to him, and to see the look on Gowron's face and all this stuff, it makes no sense if he didn't want him to come or didn't need him, But
he only says that stuff after Worf asks if he can come.
Right, but it wasn't like he was saying any of the stuff to Dax. You know what I mean? Like, he yes, you're right. He likes to tell stories, but at the same time, I think he wanted Worf to come.
But before Worf was coming, it wasn't about sticking it to Gowron. That was kind of the bonus. Once Worf was there, he saw that as an added bonus, that it would also stick it to Gowron.
I think Dax vouching for Worf is also a part of this.
Right. That's kind of where I'm getting at, Dave, is like Dax introduces him to Core, and it's like this whole thing is like, yes, he didn't need Worf to come, but I think he knew that they needed Worf to come. I think Dax kind of knew it too. I think they needed that extra, they needed some muscle. Like it's a woman and an old man going
Why
on
not
this.
take the whole Defiant on this mission? Like, why?
Yeah,
you know.
yes, Dave. Thank you. We're making
Well, but
medical trips with the Defiant. We can't do a little thing for the Sword of Kahless.
Is it smart to take just a runabout into the Gamma Quadrant?
Again, though, they didn't realize they were going to run into trouble. Of course, I mean, they don't know they're on the show, but they just thought they were going to retrieve a knife or a sword. Like they didn't know this was going to turn into like a mission.
Okay, so can we talk about, since you're bringing this up, can we talk about the scene with Cisco where they talk about this Vulcan survey ship found this evidence that they're...
Don't bury the lead. He was shaving with a cube.
Well, I'm... Okay. Dave, what do you think about him shaving?
That was
with
so
a cube?
cool. I thought that was the coolest thing when like saw that the first time. And every time I see it, I'm like, is that how you shave? It's just like this block you have to like just put against your skin.
How come he gets to shave like this, but then Tuvok is blind on Voyager and he's doing the straight razor? What's that all about?
That's Tuvok. That's how he rolls. That's Vulcans.
Yeah, it's Vulcan discipline.
Yeah. Steady hand.
Steady hand. It's like Calto.
I can buy that. I mean, I don't see Cisco being the disciplined type when it comes to shaving.
Jeremy's saying taking the Defiant would have created too many questions. For who? Who would have asked those questions?
And
I
Jeff,
don't know, possibly the Dominion.
Possibly the Klingon Empire?
Jeff, just imagine Cisco with a razor. It's like jazz, and just start moving around.
Yeah. Pretty soon he's gonna look like Heath Ledger's Joker.
Bibbidi bop, bop, bibbidi bop.
Clyde, dig.
Okay, so they kind of go, both Dax and Worf, and go, look, we got all this evidence. It's it, Core kind of brought it to us here, but these Vulcans found some interesting things about what the Klingons are saying about the Herc, and over 1,000 years ago, and this actually might have been where the Sword of Kahless went. And we got all the exposition from Worf about how his people have been searching for it ever since, and I don't know. I just feel like Cisco's like, what do you want to do? Okay, go. I don't care.
He was like, so this could patch things up with the Klingon Empire? Sure, go for it, I guess. I'll give you a runabout. The
Rio Grande specifically.
Yeah, the one that makes it to the end, the one that survived the whole show.
So you tell me that Worf knew?
Yeah, maybe. He's like, at least we won't die on that one. We know
We'll
that.
take that one.
Cisco, where's my starship?
We'll take the run up. Yeah, we'll take the Rio Grande. I don't want any of those other ones. They blow up.
I don't. I can't remember the rest of them. They all do blow up. But yeah, I think. Oh, Jeff, the Herc. Don't you find that interesting that the Klingons were conquered 1,000 years ago?
Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, we don't really know a lot about the Klingons, and every time we retcon it, we end up getting what Discovery did to the Klingons, and I don't really want to go there.
What?
I mean, what?
What is that? Why does this retcon them?
So you're referring to it as canon, Jeff? Is that what you're saying?
I don't even want to go there because the canon, non-canon thing, we didn't hear about the Herc until this episode, Dave, so it wasn't canon until this episode.
But now it is.
That could be said of everything.
True.
Because they didn't think of it up in the 60s? It doesn't count?
Well, it was never mentioned before, and
this is only 1995. It's like Star Trek hasn't been around that long. They can add this detail, right?
Right. I don't know. I have bad memories. This is what I'm trying to say. I'm traumatized, Dave.
By Discovery?
By albino Klingons. I don't know what's going on.
There was no albino Klingons in this episode. Only Toral, son of Duras.
Right. Okay. The Herc, I don't know. I'm sure they have history, and they don't really explain a lot about it. It's just basically, they were conquered, and that's kind of what...
And they left.
They left, and that's what broke up the Empire at that time with Kahless, and,
But it does lend into some interesting theories. Did the Klingons even invent warp travel for themselves, or did they just take it from the Herc?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if the Klingons were like the Ferengi, and instead of buying their way to warp drive, it was more like they slit some throats and got the warp drive.
Yeah, because
Okay.
they don't seem like scientists, right?
No.
Have you ever seen a Klingon scientist or a Klingon science vessel?
Never.
Sometimes, but
Never.
like there was like the one in that episode with Dr. Crusher, and no one liked him.
Even Worf is like in Starfleet, and I feel like if you were like, "Hey, figure out this problem with like quantum mechanics," he'd be like, "Ah," you know, he would just get angry, you know.
Smash the console.
He's like the Hulk of Star Trek.
Yeah, Jeremy's just pointing out the Xindi weren't canon until Enterprise, Jeff.
Ooh.
Wait, I mean, look, don't agree with Dave when it comes to canon, Jeremy. We have
What's
a hard
to
enough
agree
time.
with? What do you have to agree with? I don't understand. It is canon.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't
What do
matter.
you mean it doesn't matter?
what
Of course
your-
it matters.
It doesn't matter what your canon is.
It doesn't matter.
I don't even understand Jameel's position that canon doesn't matter. Like, what do you mean
The
it doesn't matter?
discussion as to whether it's canon or not is almost as boring as Babylon 5. Like,
I think it's more so. At least Babylon 5 had some good stories. to
Okay,
tell.
I'm gonna solve this canon issue, Dave, for you. My position. Canon is important for whatever story you're trying to tell right at the moment. You
Right.
need to make sure that there's enough canon for people to understand the story that you're trying to tell and the universe that it's in, but you cannot make it bog you down and hinder you from being able to tell your story. If you do that, then the canon is too much and you need to disregard it. Otherwise, you're going to paint yourself in a box and you won't be able to move forward.
I
Yeah,
reject
we can't
that
rate
notion. It's I think you can tell stories while staying within the box that's been created, unless it's like I think there can be exceptions or retcons, but generally like you know, like when they did like Star Trek Picard, right? And they were like, these are the first Romulans that were ever assimilated, even though they had shown an assimilated Romulan in Voyager.
Yeah.
It's dumb. It pisses off fans like me when they do that kind of stuff. It didn't make the story better. It didn't make anything better in that version. Like it was just like lazy writing.
It only pisses you off, Dave, because you know you've seen that episode of Voyager. Most people watching that episode are going, "Okay, great."
But it didn't serve the. It didn't that choice didn't serve the story.
They felt it did.
So
and-
one writer years ago, right, has to paint you in a corner where you're like, well, I can't put this detail that I wrote in my script. Sorry, it's against the canon because it was mentioned this one specific
It doesn't
time.
even make sense. Why would only one Romulan ship have ever been assimilated and all of that? We already know in the neutral zone that they had been attacking in the neutral zone in the first season of Next Generation.
You can't selectively choose what canon you get upset with, though, Dave, and which canon you don't, because what you know, a lot of people go, well, that's forgivable. I mean, it was season 2 and they didn't figure out the uniforms yet, or they didn't figure out this part yet, you know. And so when they write a Picard episode or whatever, it's forgivable. I mean, you just come up with your own explanation in your head. Well, that Romulan ship went through the wormhole or got blown across when it was in the Bandlands one time and went halfway across the universe. Nobody ever knew.
It depends on
you
what
know?
the example is. I think that like
Then
you
you're
know
picking and choosing.
I'm getting somewhat because I think that like some of things are more distracting to an audience member, me, a fan, me, than you know, and maybe it's my issue, but I think like having canon is good because it establishes the world, it establishes the rules. If like every writer that comes along says, I just want to tell a new story and I don't give a fuck what they did last week, then you don't have no cohesive show. You don't have any
cohesive show. Understand what I said. There's enough canon to build up your universe that you can work within, but at the same time, you cannot get bogged down with tons of canon, with every specific thing, with every specific element. You're telling me that elements from Picard has to impact Discovery? You might as well just end the show right now because
why?
Because Picard is digging a hole. Right?
It's all in Star Trek universe. It's all in Star Trek world.
Yes, and Q can snap it away, and all of what happened in Picard could not happen. Could just disappear and just be a story that didn't happen. But it's canon, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can. Guess what? You can write your way into getting everything you want if you're a writer. You can write yourself into an alternate timeline. You can write yourself into an alternate dimension. Fine, just do it.
Okay. All right, moving on. I think we've had our fill. I think we had our conversation there, and I think we're ready to talk about the trio here. We have Core, we have Dax, and we have Worf. And they're all going to the Gamma Quadrant to find where the Herc took all their treasures, and it's time for them to put their rightful place of glory. Which I never understand. I don't get the Klingons sometimes. Like they don't they're much more interested in finding a dumb sword than they are in like making their life better for their people. Like can we just talk about like the Klingons as a race in general? Like they're often admired by everybody but they're never criticized. And I feel like they should be, because like I feel like they're highly illogical, like compared to the Vulcans. And it's funny that they bring up the Vulcans in this episode, but like they are like literally like counterproductive of like what they should do.
They're romantics.
They're romantics, yes. They're hopelessly romantic though. Do Kevin and Ashley, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
And to bring it down to even a smaller level, we all love Worf, but he's kind of a garbage person.
Yeah.
Like
especially a parent. He's a garbage parent.
But in this episode, he also, I don't think he tries to kill Core, but I think he's like, if he dies, that would be easy. Like he's trying to convince him to let go. I know I'm jumping way ahead, but
right.
He makes some questionable choices in almost every episode.
He does. And sometimes it's like about glory and honor, and it's not logical at all. And glory, and it's sometimes it like they even mentioned it in this episode before with the whole thing I kind of brought up earlier about like how they talk, like Core gives him a hard time about how he should have killed a kid who, I forget what it was. He tried to hurt Worf or something.
That was Duras.
Yeah.
Son of Duras. Remember like the whole Klingon Civil War, and at the end of that, Worf gets his family honor back, just to be stripped of it by Gowron a couple of years later. But he gets because his family was framed by the Duras family, so he had the right to kill this guy who is Toral, who we see later on, who looks like this, played by a different actor.
Yeah.
In this episode, but I don't know. Well, they got a new actor.
No, I mean the dude
canon.
Still dumb. He's still dumb. No, it's consistent. He's dumb in the Next Generation, and then we see him grown up, but he's still a dummy.
Yeah, the Duras sisters didn't have much time for him at the time. They kind of never bothered with him. But he does live through this episode, right? He does survive, keep going.
I don't think they ever established that. He was definitely knocked out.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think so. He's the one that she points the phaser at, right at the end?
Maybe. Yeah, it's
right.
Yeah, because then she says, "Tell me about the Klingon
jamming signal."
Oh no, it says here in the synopsis. Yeah, it was Toral that she puts up the phaser.
So I would assume he survived. She wouldn't have just murdered him.
Yeah, he had been stabbed by that point, but he was not. He was wounded, not dead.
She's a good guy. Okay. So they break into this like the vault of the Herc or whatever, where all these treasures are, and that's when the son of Duras shows up, and they find the sword, but they have some unexpected company, and that's when Toral and the son of Duras shows up, and he's like, "Good to see you, Worf. Seems you were too drunk to remember me on the tavern." He
says that to Core.
Says that to Core, and he also says, "Do you regret sparing my life?" Because Core gives him a hard time. This is what I was referring to about sparing his life, and says basically the humans have had too much of an effect on you. You should be more cutthroat. You should be more of a garbage person, Worf. And both Dax and Worf are kind of like, no, like. We did the right thing. You don't just murder for murder's sake, because
but at the same time, like if we remember the canon about what happened, right, is he wanted to leave him without honor alive as his punishment. It wasn't like, I'm just gonna kill the dude straight up. It's like, no, bitch, you're gonna get no honor. You have no house, and you're gonna just rot like that.
Yeah, live what I've been living.
Yeah, it was payback.
And
It was kind of yeah, exactly. So Dave,
Yeah.
Again, to my question about the Klingons being kind of garbage people.
Yeah.
Am I right? Because I feel like a lot of times they're like, especially by Picard and Dax and a lot of these different characters, they're revealed. You know, they kind of put them on a pedestal, and they're terrible people. Like they're immoral.
Yeah,
And,
I think that there's some differing opinions on Klingons. I don't think that it's there's one opinion of them in the galaxy. I think Quark kind of alludes to it in the beginning of the episode. He's like, these Klingon stories suck. Everyone dies and murders and whatever.
Yes.
And this is not
Nobody
fun.
ever makes profit.
Nobody makes any money. Like what the hell, But I think it's just kind of like these great old warrior storylines. I think the Klingons, as time has gone on, I think are becoming less and less like sort of, I don't know, identifiable for an audience, maybe because they're kind of based on like Vikings and samurais and kind of a way of life that doesn't exist on Earth anymore, really, but was very prevalent for centuries. And so when they were imagined, I think that that space is sort of like a dangerous place where there's pirates and there's ships and there's pillagers everywhere, and the Klingons are among them. And yeah, like I think a lot of them are bad and some of them are good. And I think that Dax, in particular, Curzon Dax, had to find an appreciation for them to make peace, right? Because I think before that, the Federation flat out rejected them. Right? They said, no, you, like Kirk says in a lot of those episodes where the Klingons show up, he's like, they invade planets, they enslave people, they install
kill my boy.
They killed my boy. I can never
Don't
forgive
believe
them.
them.
They did.
Don't trust
them. Yeah.
Well, we also
dying,
know
Jim.
we also know that the Klingons have changed because, or they say, like, Worf says, if my people go back to the old ways, then they'll start conquering planets again and whatever.
Yes. So peace with the Federation kind of brought a new way of life, but that also caused conflict with the Klingons where they invaded Cardassia. Is sort of like, we've been doing this peace stuff for too long. Time to have a war.
Well, I feel like, especially in Deep Space Nine, if we're going to talk about the Klingons, I feel like, the peace treaty really it forced the Klingons to direct their need to be warriors in, like, they kind of like compartmentalized it, especially later on, and we're going to get to it, but toward the Dominion, where like they would show up out of nowhere, decloak and blow up a couple Jem'Hadar ships and be like, you may continue your work, back to glory, and it was just like, it was kind of like, drug addicts where they're like, okay, you can do heroin twice a year. Okay. You can't do it all the time, but you can do it twice a year when we tell you. How's that? Okay. Okay.
I don't know if I follow that metaphor, but yeah, Jeff, I think the Klingons are. I think you're right you would be right as much to admire them as much as to despise them, specifically the Klingon Empire as a state.
Well, I think you made a great comparison, Dave, when you compare them to Vikings, because if you watch the show Vikings, for instance, and I know it's a little bit fictionalized, but like they're terrible people.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a certain set of culture and a certain set of ways of doing things when they kill a code. Like, yeah, like there's an episode of Vikings where they kill a guy with it's called like the Broken Eagle or something. And they literally tear the guy's whole back apart and like break his back. But it's like, it's thought of as a great way to die, And like this is kind of like what the Klingons are based off. Actually, I think more than anything, a lot of people do compare them to Russians and to samurai, but I think the Vikings is actually the most apt analogy for them because they are. It's almost like it doesn't make any sense. Like it's illogical to do what they do.
They're not Vulcans, even though Kor was the ambassador to Vulcan.
In its core, it's a death cult. They.
Right.
It's all about the best way to die. Life is all about the best way to die.
Right. Which is kind of what I was just saying with the Vikings. Like, if you die on a raid, what a great way to go.
It's interesting to me too that Klingons are longer lived than humans, but are happy to die as soon as they get a chance to.
Right.
As long as it's honorable.
As long as it's honorable in battle, during a raid, these are great ways to go. And you don't want to
don't make it to old age, but
it doesn't matter to them if they die early. If they die honorable, they'll live on forever through stories and song.
Right. And they say that in this episode. Think of the songs they will sing, the statues they will erect. Again, when Kor is kind of trying to play to Worf about why this mission would be important. It's all about, it's all about glory and all these things, about to go find this piece of metal. Again, I kind of wish we had a character in some of these Klingon episodes. Like, yes, you said we had it with Quark, but like a Vulcan or a Quark, or be like, what the hell is going on? Why are we doing this? This makes no sense. We're risking our life for something that is like, it's important to you guys, but only because of song and story and culture, and it really makes no sense as far as practicality, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Anyway,
you did get that a bit from Cisco in Blood Oath.
Right. Yes, and that's a great comparison, Ashley, because in this, Cisco's way more cool. He's more like, all right, I get it. You want to go like find this cool artifact, and you know what? I can't really complain because I'm in future seasons going to be like the Bajorans and the things with the Bajorans. We have to go find this thing. It's there. I know it's there and it's real. We're going to get that from Cisco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I imagine the Klingon homeworld though is just full of statues, much like they're all over, just like Tribbles. Just statues everywhere on the Klingon homeworld.
So it's like USA.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like going to Washington, D.C. It's like, what? We got a building just for Jefferson? Okay. All right. Take me to the Lincoln building. Oh, there's a Lincoln building? We got you at the Lincoln building. Yeah. All right. Okay. What do we got? All right. What do you guys, Dave, I'm going to ask you about the whole scene where they're cooking, like, I think they're cooking lunch.
Cave rat. It's a cave rat.
It's a cave rat. And, what do you make of this scene? Because they're all kind of digging it. And I think if any other character was there, other than Dax, Worf, and Kor, like, I kind of wish we had a Bashir on this mission. Like, I really do. Because I want to see a character that's not into the Klingon culture there.
Yeah, maybe Kira,
any of them. I don't really, any one of them. O'Brien.
Set up traps in the cave.
Yeah, I think it was okay. The whole thing with the when they caught the cave rat and then they cooked it, and this is like where Worf and is it where Worf and Kor really start to feud? Or I guess it was the scene before it where he first told him who Toral was, and then they have this, and so and Dax and him are like joking about, and we ran into a cave rat and it had fangs and eyes and it came at us, and like we're gonna have to like embellish this part of the story, and Dax is fine with it, right? But like this is kind of why. Like Worf, he's Mr. Klingon and all these things, but he's also like super uptight even for a Klingon. And he's just got to, and so there he's just like, I don't like this guy. He drinks too much and he makes shit up. And
what his problem with him is, Dave, I think is kind of his problem, what I've been alluding to with Klingon culture, where it's like, okay to exaggerate and boast about ridiculous things. Let's Jaemeel.
Yep.
I'll take it over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I was just kind of waiting to be tagged in concerning this one.
Do you kind of see what I'm saying? Like, I agree with Worf.
Yeah, just imagine you meet your favorite poet, right? Mm-hmm. And you've read about this great love of his, right? And it's moved you, and then you find out that it was just Major Kira as a hooker in that one episode, right? And he liked her and he just embellished this love affair, right? A part of the spell is broken. Part of what you loved about was the idea of this existing, the glory and the honor that you spoke so well about is just exaggerations and boasts, all right? And of meaningless events, right? You're making this epic battle out of basically sneaking up on a rat and eating it for dinner, like that goes against a lot of what Worf believes in and what he still believes in terms of Klingon culture. So of course he would reject it. Of course he would be angry at Kor because he's opposition to what he believes.
And Kor seems to have this opinion of Worf, kind of what Dave is alluding to, that he's this uptight, doesn't understand Klingon values, is only concerned with aristocrat ideals and handing this sword over to Gowron and getting all his praise. And then Worf kind of comes back at him and is like, look, you're going to get your statue. You're going to get your songs. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because it's right. It's the right thing for me to do, which is also kind of misguided. But he's coming at it, I think, more from an ideal, like, I understand Worf's motivations more. And so Kevin and Ashley, what do you make of this argument, and what do you make of Jaemeel and I's and Dave's analysis so far?
Kor's not the first Klingon and won't be the last Klingon to embellish a story, and if Worf had spent more time with Klingons, then he would know that that's just what Klingons do. And I think other Klingons, when they hear these stories, know that they're like 60% bullshit, but still enjoy the stories.
Yeah, I think Worf is a literalist, and so if this hero of his is embellishing, it calls into question everything he believes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's going to be really hard for Worf.
And there have been other Klingons other than Kor that have told Worf to calm down, relax a little, and have some fun, because that's the Klingon way.
It was a good meme. In the history of telling your significant other to calm down, it has never worked out.
He tries it all the time. It's not. It's still
Just
not
calm
working.
down.
He's like,
Never works.
it's all good. I'm like, is it?
I think that's kind of what's going on here. I think at the end of the day, your significant other, is kind of your hero. And then when you meet like a hero that's more of like a cultural hero or social hero, like if you had met, John Lennon or something for me, and I find out John Lennon was kind of a shit parent, which he was, especially to Julian. I'd look at him different, I'd be like, oh man, he's kind of a shit parent. He's kind of a shit dude in that way, but it's hard to compartmentalize those things, because a lot of times when you hear stories and embellishment, you only think the good things, and you don't really get to see the person for who they really are. And I think that is kind of what Worf's struggling with, is his naivete toward even not only Klingon culture, but also the way he looks at Klingon culture and the heroes.
Right. And I think Deep Space Nine did a great job of filling in a lot more on Worf's backstory, which was very much established in Next Gen. But like they continue going with it, especially his conversations with Jadzia throughout these, like this season and next season, where he talks about growing up on Earth and how isolating he was, and how he was too Klingon to be human, but could never really fit in back with their society, because he became, I don't know, like who would have Worf become if, like, his parents hadn't been killed on Khitomer and he had grown up just fully Klingon? Would he be basically the same person, or would he not be? It's hard. It's impossible.
Excuse me.
I don't know. Like,
he wouldn't be so reserved. I mean, he
No.
explains that in a later episode, why he is this way.
Yeah.
Because he had hurt that kid. I don't know. Did he kill?
He killed him. He was playing
Really?
soccer with somebody. He headbutted somebody in a soccer match, and he killed him because his skull is much stronger than a human's.
Because he did let go and have fun and got overexcited. It wasn't out of malice. It was just overexcitement.
Yeah, competitiveness, because he was competing against like this rival team or guy, and he had to be reminded that I'm a Klingon and I'm a lot stronger than humans, and to live among you, I have to be restrained. I have to hold back. Is what he told himself at like 13.
So I think if he was born, he obviously was born Klingon. If he was raised in Klingon society, he definitely wouldn't be the Worf he is now.
Right, but he also brings up a lot, like it's a nature versus nurture argument, but he also talks about like his nature of kind of being a Klingon and believing in Klingon ideas, especially Kahless. That's why this mission is so important. And he keeps talking about the spirit of Kahless and how it guided him, and he now knows like what he needed to do. It was to lead his people, and it's kind of delusions of grandeur, in my opinion. I think, a lot of it has to do with what he feels like he must do, because he's never embraced his Klingon side because what you just referred to, Kevin. Like he had to reserve it, but he so desperately wants to be accepted by the Klingons. But I think he has to come to a place where he needs to embrace his human side as well, like how he was raised. And I think it's hard for him because everyone Core especially gives him a hard time about what he should be and not what he is. And what he is a Klingon man that was raised by humans, and he should embrace the good things and not the bad things. That's kind of how I look at it. Dave, do you kind of see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think Jadzia is the one who helps him find that more than anybody. Any other character he deals with is trying to reconcile who he is as a Klingon, who he is as like a Starfleet officer, and as a friend, a husband, all these other things that come, a father. He has a lot of like conflicting things because he wants so bad to be part of his people and to be a Klingon and be accepted. And you can tell he's still struggling with his decision in this episode that he sided against the Klingons. He threw away his relationship with Gowron and all that shit because he was like, no, I have to stand up for what's right and what my duty and my oaths are. And I'm not going along with this shit, but he's still like, everyone hates me now, and everyone thinks I'm a pariah, and maybe Core now also thinks that. And so, and it's also about power and sort of like hero worship and this whole sword thing, which is like what's the conflict here between Worf and Core. There's no supernatural properties to this sword, but you'd think that there were, that it was somehow like, well, whoever holds it wants to kill their friends over it and want to conquer the Empire.
That is what I love about this episode. Most shows would make that a plot point. It would make it, because these are two. Worf is a beloved character. Core is also, even though he's not a regular. So you like both of these characters. Most people like both of these characters, and they turn on each other in the worst way.
Yes.
And they would normally have that be a supernatural thing, like the sword is causing it, but really it's just their own ambition, both of them. And that's what I like. It doesn't shy away from that.
Yes, and it goes to show how like a piece of steel it's the symbol of it. It's kind of like the Ark of the Covenant, or like those type of things. People will kill people and go to the ends of the earth to find something that they don't even know really exists, and and once they do find it, what they do to keep it, and we see that in the scene here, guys, where Core is hanging off the ledge and Worf is holding him up, and he tells him to drop down. There's a ledge there, and he's like, he doesn't believe him. He says he can't see it. He asks Dax if she sees it. She's like, no, I don't see it, but like maybe we could just pull you up. And then they ended up pulling him up, which I was like, why
Quite
did
easily.
Just easily?
Yes.
I was like, why did they just do that at the beginning? And then there's this whole argument afterward about Core accuses him of wanting to kill him, and
This is the same thing though.
Right. Yeah. And Dax says the same thing, and Worf kind of goes, he is old and clumsy. If he had fallen, it would have been his own fault.
Yeah, Worf kind of says the same thing too.
Yeah. Right. But I think what the point is, I don't even think that any of them are like kind of thinking straight, especially Worf. But they're all kind of clouded by the glory of bringing this sword to Gowron. And
or the Emperor. Or keeping it for themselves. Like they toy with all of those ideas, right?
Yeah.
I guess it would be like, what would be the equivalent? It would be like if you were in like the in the Middle Ages.
Excalibur.
Yeah, if you had Excalibur, or if you had like the Spear of Destiny or something, or like something super holy, religious, like in the Crusades, if you somehow came back from the Crusades with like the Spear of Destiny, or like the cross itself, or like the Holy Grail, and
If you were
saying
the
like,
Onion Knight and you were able to gift Daenerys Targaryen the first of her name,
the
the
Unburned.
sorry,
Breaker of chains.
the
Breaker
Breaker
of
of Chains.
Chains.
Sorry, you were able to offer her the seat, the throne, right? Then it would be similar to that. But the temptation for you to rise up to power as well is always lurking.
Right. The Klingons are obsessed with symbolism, right? Like this,
Yeah.
like, and especially with Kahless, like this one guy who was like their first warrior king, who
Yeah.
united the houses, as they established in Discovery, now canon, the 24 houses of the empire, right?
I feel like I always compare Kahless, like whenever I hear it brought up with the Klingons, I always think of Muhammad in Islam. But I feel like the more apt comparison is Ragnar with the Vikings. Like he's also revealed, like in Iceland, they have a huge statue for Ragnar. And you know, they are descendants of the Norwegian people and stuff, and the Vikings, but like the you know, they don't even, they speak the original like Nordic language and everything, but like again, it's like that culture, it's that raiding culture and the huge statues and songs. Like the Icelandics are known for their singing of the songs and everything like that. And you know, the more I think about it, the more I really feel like the Klingons represent that idea more than anything. And yeah, I just think the bickering and this, you know, the survival of the fittest, all these ideas with the Klingons have merit, but at the same time, I think they're misguided, and I think, you know, I don't know. I see why it's compelling, because a lot of human culture was kind of based in this idea of, you know,
The
warrior.
strong survive, the strong rule, like, you know, the seas, or you know, in this case,
Might
the
makes
stars.
right.
You know,
Yeah. And I feel like nowadays, especially, you know, ever since like this aired in 95 or something, and now, you know, this is now some 26 years later, and I just think even since then, I think we've kind of thought a little bit more about, I think we're more compassionate a lot of the times now. Like I think we look, I don't know, at least I am, I think we look back at this and go kind of like, oh, the Klingons, you know, I just don't understand why they're so like liked by all the Federation characters. Like, you know, I think there should be a bit more scrutiny from a Dax, from a Picard, from a Cisco. There is a little bit in the Blood Oath episode, but not this one. So I don't know.
I don't know. I think you're I think the Klingons are not for everybody. I think that I think your criticisms of them are valid. I think that they are a misguided state, at least. You know, I think that the Klingons are very diverse. I think there are good Klingons and bad Klingons, and you know, but
we literally have a scene where Worf and Kor are gonna choke each other to the death, and Dax has to break it up with a phaser and shoots them both. and we kind of, I think sometimes, like, even Dax forgets, like, I don't know if this is the best way to go about things, you know.
Well, I think Cisco will dress them both down. I think when the episode, which we'll talk about later this season, where his brother shows up, Kern, you know, and Cisco says, "I give you a lot of latitude on this Klingon shit, but you know, you are not on the Klingon station. You are not wearing Klingon uniforms. Like, so you know, you're not in the Klingon Defense Force. So you don't those are not the laws you are governed by here, right? And rules. And so yeah, I think that different characters choose to embrace it with more than others. And I think if you were in this world, Jeff, I think you would not. I don't think you would be a Klingon file. You know?
I would be more on the Vulcan side, even though as smug and condescending as the Vulcans are. I'm more about logic than I am about honor, and
Passion.
you know, and passion. Yeah. So that yes, that's kind of where I lean. I get people that lean the other way and go, no, it's about live a little and have that idea. But yeah.
Well, it's kind of that.
Live a little. What a laugh.
What a laugh.
I wish we had a little Bashir in this episode. I really do.
He's only in the
Because
beginning.
Yeah, he's only at the beginning. And, I just wish we had a little bit of him throughout the episode because I think he would have brought a lot of great comments about to the whole episode. But okay, so at the end here, they decide to shoot it into space, basically the sword, because Dax puts it in the thing and walks away, and Kor is kind of pleading with them and kind of says like, "This belongs to all Klingons. Are you sure of this, Worf?" And Worf says, "Yes. Look at how this turned just you and me against each other. Think about what it would do to the Empire. Gowron and all his glory would not be able to stop the division that would occur," which is kind of apropos to today with Trump and the symbol of him and how it's everything that's dividing people. I can kind of see what Worf's point there. And then Kor's, he basically tells him, "You're wrong. It was our destiny to find it. It was our destiny to not only find it, but for it to be ours and for everyone to know it was ours, and have all the songs and statues and everything that Kor wants and everything that motivates him." And Worf and Dax say, "Nope," and they hit the button. And that's that,
Yeah, I think. Sorry.
I love how this episode starts with glory and how like they're going to do it for the people, but it also shows how quickly even people with good intentions, how intoxicating power and righteousness can become, and how quickly that can happen. And that's really, I think, that the core of this episode that I really like that. I like that.
Me too, because as much as you might have good intentions or good morals or good beliefs of what you think you should do, when you're actually faced with that moment, it's hard. It's hard to resist, especially. We kind of get that in like, I keep thinking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and that whole moment of when he goes through all the penitent man must pass and all the different trials he goes through, and then he has to pick the right cup. Like I really kind of keep thinking about that story because I think that it's very similar to this one. That only you got to be pure of heart to be able to not resist the power of an object of as much importance as the Sword of Kahless. And it was obvious Kor and Worf did not have that pure of heart.
But Dax did.
Dax could have.
Dax isn't a Klingon, so she doesn't have the same connection to it that the other two do. I think that it was a mature decision, I guess, because they realized, we both acted out a character for ourselves, and it's not worth it. So they just beam it into space. I think it's an admirable act. It's kind of it's a bit sad. I couldn't help but think when they mentioned 1,000 years from now, could it be Discovery that comes back and brings this sword back in? Because that's now the time period they're in.
Stop it.
They're never going to reference it because it's canon that doesn't matter.
I think though, to what you were saying, Jeff, about the Klingons in general, they allude to this at the end of the episode where they say our people aren't ready for this. They're not ready to have this.
If they did have it by some circumstance like us, it would divide and it would just lead to chaos.
Right.
They can't handle the fact that they're not at war with the Federation, and they need it. It's like it's part of their day-to-day life is war. And if they don't have war, I think like this is a great commentary on kind of, to me, also the Americans. Like it is the kind of the Vikings, but the Americans are a culture that need a war or need an enemy to be able to handle their economy and their lifestyle and someone to hate. They need someone to hate. and that is very much kind of what I feel like the Klingons are a metaphor as well is the military industrial complex kind of fueling this fear. And
Don't forget they're fighting the Klingon or the Cardassians quite a bit right now too. Like not
Yeah.
just the
I think it's part of the human condition, though, to define yourself as a or like in juxtaposition of someone else. Like we kind of define ourselves as not American, right? Like it I think every culture does that, not just the States.
yeah, the other. That's
Yeah.
them. That's like
They
them over
always
there.
do another.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're more similar than we are different, and we forget that a lot of the times. And yes, even if you compare it, like if you compare a Vulcan and a Klingon, they both love their children. They both breathe the same air. They both cherish their life. You know, they both want good moral things usually, but it's what corrupts them is usually the problem. You know. Hey, it's okay with being American, Jeremy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being American.
USA, 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 USA.
You got him back, Jaemeel. Don't worry. You just go to USA. And they love that.
Yeah, they love that. Yeah.
If I had my virtual background, you would love me.
But okay, so I think that's it. I think we should get to some fun facts, though. I'll bring up the fun facts. So guys,
Yes.
what do you think? Yeah, I don't know about. Okay, who directed this episode? Do you have that, Dave?
Who directed it? It was directed by LeVar Burton.
Right, we got LeVar back. Okay, didn't he do last episode?
I don't think so. Let me pull up the sheet.
No, he didn't. James L. Conway. Yes, we covered this last week. Yes. Okay, so all right, Sword of Kahless. All right, it just took me a moment to pull it up, and bear with me. Okay. All right, we only got a few here, so this will be quick. This episode was written in an effort to more fully integrate the character of Worf into Deep Space Nine, which makes sense. All of the 4-season episodes to that date, with the exception of The Way of the Warrior, had been greenlit prior to the confirmation of Michael Dorn's arrival. So that's why he's like really not in a lot of the episodes, and when he is, it's kind of like, let's just shoehorn him in this.
To give him lines that anybody could have been given.
Let's make him more a part of the Deep Space Nine by taking him off of Deep Space Nine with only one character from Deep Space Nine and putting him in this situation
where he acts like an asshole.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so Worf tended to be confined to the B stories of these episodes, if he even figured it in them at all. The Sword of Kahless was the first show put together after Worf joined the cast. As such, the producers felt it should focus on him, which makes sense. Worf makes a reference to Kor's battle with Kirk and the Organia, a reference to Errand of Mercy from 1967. Where Kor and the Klingons in general first appeared. That's the first appearance of them. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. The blue razor Cisco uses that Dave so much loved, he uses to shave his head and his beard with this episode, is the same prop Geordi LaForge shaved with in the Next Generation episode Code of Honor from 1987.
Oh.
So LeVar Burton, he goes, Hey, Avery, why don't you use this? You know, so
Yes. All right.
shave. I'm not detecting any shave. Okay.
Geordi LaForge, how you doing?
How you doing? Why don't you shave with this? Okay. It kind of reminds me of Jeff Probst too. I'm thinking
All
of
the fixins.
all the fixins.
Don't make me go. I'm doing it now.
Baked potato.
Baked potato. I can taste it.
I have to have it now. Where is it?
Baked potato, all the fixins.
I can smell it.
I can smell it. Sour cream. Chives.
Wood, fire grilled, Outback steak. Plus, the brand new Outback Steakhouse Margarita, the grilled pineapple Rita.
Pineapple Rita. Oh man. Okay. A certain degree of knowledge of Worf's backstory from the USS Enterprise D is necessary to fully understand this episode. The canon, if you will, especially the events portrayed in the Next Generation episode Rightful Heir from 1993. In that episode, the clerics of Boreth create a clone of Kahless, the unforgettable, Kahless, the unforgettable, and try to convince the Klingon people that it is the real Kahless returned from Stovacor, and that he must assume his post as leader of all the Klingons. However, after he is defeated in combat by Gowron, the identity of the clone is revealed, and Worf suggests that he may be made into a figurehead emperor, with Gowron still in control of the Klingon High Council. The clone accepts and becomes the moral leader of the Klingon people.
That was what they originally were going to do in that episode? That Next Gen episode?
They didn't do that?
No, it was more like Gowron's like, I'm going to get this guy killed, and Worf kind of convinces him that he shouldn't kill him and just make him like a figurehead, like make him like basically like a...
Oh, that's what I said. Yeah, that they tried to make him. They did make him a figurehead, right?
They did, but there wasn't like this honorable combat where Kahless clone defeated Gowron.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Or maybe they were gonna do that, and then they decided different. Okay, this episode brings together two Klingon characters, Kor and Worf, who were each groundbreaking in their own time. Kor can be considered the first Klingon character in the entire Star Trek canon, as he appeared in the first ever Klingon episode, Errand of Mercy, and was the only Klingon in that episode with any real personality, the others being anonymous soldiers. Worf, meanwhile, was the first Klingon to be a regular character when TNG began in 1987. Finally, during the first season of TNG, Worf wore the same golden sash that Kor had worn in Errand of Mercy before switching to his more familiar silver-colored sash.
I love how you always do, when you say Kor, you do it like you did in Star Trek Radio Theater when you played Jedzia Dax as Nicole Franzel. You're like, Kor! Kor! Oh my god, Kor!
Yeah. Why are you voting me out? Okay. All right. John Colicos, I think it's Colicos, okay, who played Kor in this and other Star Trek productions, is also known for playing Baltar in the original Battlestar Galactica, another seminal space series.
Gaius fracking Baltar.
And Ronald D. Moore went on to do the reimagining.
Yes, he did. So connections there. Maybe that's why, because he was like a fan of that as a kid, and he met John Colicos. Okay. The Sword of Kahless was the second episode of Deep Space Nine to be directed by LeVar Burton after Indiscretion, and the first to have Michael Dorn in the main role. Okay.
Yeah, Indiscretion was only, like 5 episodes ago?
Yeah. I guess they kind of I guess after TNG, they're like, LeVar,
I guess he had some free time after Next Gen wasn't on the air anymore.
Yeah, Reading Rainbow, I think it was done too. Okay. The Herc are also mentioned in the Star Trek Enterprise episode Affliction. I believe that was mentioned in the comments. Okay. Taral was last seen in the TNG episode Redemption 2 from 1991, where he was played by J.D. Cullum. Yes, we mentioned that earlier. Taral taunts Worf for not killing him when he had the chance, a reference to the TNG episode Redemption 2, where following the defeat of the House of Duress in the Klingon Civil War, Gowron presents the young Taral for Worf to kill in retribution for his family's crimes against Worf, who instead takes pity on Taral and spares his life, electing to let him live with his dishonor. Kind of more punishment. That's that's always kind of been like a Oh, actually, I kind of think of like in Django, where they're gonna cut his balls off. Django, they're gonna cut his balls off, and then Samuel Jackson has that great scene. He was like, "No, that's not as bad as sending him to the DeWitt Mining Company. You're gonna be breaking rocks every day, all day." You know, like it's kind of that whole argument is like that is a worse punishment than us just killing you. You know.
Like Thomas Riker going to that Cardassian camp.
Yeah, exactly like that. Okay. Core describes Dax as a joined trill of 7 lives. This would indicate that Jadzia has not told him about Duran.
Yeah, he drinks a lot too.
Duran doesn't count. That's what I think. This episode is partly a sequel to Blood Oath, which establishes the old friendship between Core and Dax seen in this episode, as well as Koloth and Kang being mentioned here, but not seen in this episode because they're dead, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're dead. So how are you gonna
They're
say
dead.
LeVar Burton, and finally, LeVar Burton's first 2 directorial efforts for DS9 were both heavily inspired by classic westerns. Indiscretion was inspired by The Searchers from 1956, and this episode was highly inspired by The Treasure of Sierra Madre from 1948. So go give the Treasures of Sierra Madre a watch.
I will.
And see the comparisons, guys. And that is it. Well, let's move on to ratings. Dave, what do we got?
Let's get the ratings going here. All right, and coming right up, the Sword of Kahless, a 7.1 on IMDb. So just to give you some guidelines here, Jeff, where do you want to start from?
I want to give it like an 8.3. I feel like that's fair.
Yeah, I'm a little lower on it. I'm gonna give it like a 7.5.
745. Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I'll give it a 7.2.
7.5.
9.
Ooh. Wow. He's back. He's back up. He was down to a 2 for Starship Down.
Where's the 10? That's why I ask.
I thought it was 4 weeks of 10s he had before.
Yeah, I never thought it was going to end.
And then it went 5. Like that was like the blemish where it went down a little bit, and then it went really down.
Starship Down. It went Starship Down.
Feelings about Star Trek.
We're climbing back up though. And next week, Jeff, we have Arman Bashir.
Yeah. Okay. Next week is one of my favorite episodes of DS9 by far.
That's going to be another high one for me.
It's going to be a high one for me too. It'll be over 9 for sure. Okay. So, Dave, what else do we have coming up on all of our podcasting networks here on Live Long and Podcasts and Super Mater Bros Podcasting?
We don't need no stinking matches.
Badges?
So as we were being asked earlier in the chat by Sam, what night do you cover the original series? Sam, we cover the original series. We used to cover it on Wednesdays, but now we cover it on Mondays, and we only have 4 left, something like that, of all the original 79 episodes. So we've done most of them. And we're going to be finishing those out over the next few weeks before we will then go to an Enterprise podcast, which will be led by Jody Simpson and Adam Woodward. It's going to replace that one. But once we get all those done. But last night we talked about the Gamesters of Triskelion. So if you like the original series, check out our podcast over there. Of course, Deep Space Nine on Tuesdays. And then this Thursday, we're going to be talking about Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 7, along with Davin Skellhorn from Locutors of Trek, who is a second cousin to Jeff and I out of Nova Scotia. This week's episode for Lower Decks is called Where Pleasant Fountains Lie. And I believe it's going to be focused on Lieutenant Commander Andy Billups.
Okay.
We'll see.
We'll see. Anyway, and then over on our other channel, Super Mater Brothers Podcasting. Jeff, did you know about that? You should. It has your name in it.
What show? I don't. To what do you refer?
Super Mater Brothers Podcasting is our other channel where we talk about stuff that's not Star Trek related. And if you like the stuff that's not Star Trek related too, check that out. We talk about shows like Survivor and Big Brother and Marvel, the new Marvel movies and TV shows, and we've talked about Netflix shows like Tiger King, and we've talked about fictionalized and non-fictionalized like The Serpent. So right now, just tonight, we did our draft for Survivor season 41. Jeff, you were there. We previewed that entire cast, which I thought was very exciting, and we did a whole draft tonight. Jaemeel, Jeff, Daryl, Amanda, Jane, our friends Sean and Jen, who are in our little draft, and we talked about the entire cast. I'm excited about this season of Survivor that's coming up, and I'm clearly just stalling for time as I go to bring up the image. There's this season's cast is drafted tonight. Exciting. Is Jeff gone? Okay, and then we're talking about Big Brother season 23. We've been talking about that for 11 weeks, Jeff.
Yeah.
You, Jaemeel, and I on it's usually Sundays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We are down to the final 4, and we only got 2 weeks left of that. We're trying to do double duty with Survivor. And also check out our other channel called Trivial Debates, where we argue about movies, TV, sports, and more once a month on the Sunday. We got this episode coming out for this Sunday. We got Chris Seymour hosting, along with Max Duda, Davin Skellhorn, and Jessica Chan are all going to be competing. This could be fun. I'm going to be producing that. It'll be 10 a.m. on Sunday. Davin and Jessica are going to be also the panel, along with myself, for Star Trek Prodigy, which we'll be covering after Star Trek Lower Decks finishes up. So I'm excited for them to get to be acquainted with one another. I think those are all our shows.
Okay, well, thanks, Dave. Thanks for filling us in on everything that's coming up here on our wide variety of podcasting networks. For all of us here at D9 at 9ish, Dave Mater, the Bajoran Workers, Kevin and Ashley Millard, and as always, co-host Jaemeel Robinson, we say, I'll take the sword to my grave before I give it to you.
Shoot, I'm on the wrong. Okay. Good night, everybody.